Logic is the study of correct reasoning. It helps us find the truth in matters we are interested in. That is why it is important to know how to use logic in a good way, because truth is valuable in and of itself. When your mind carries more true beliefs about reality, you are able to make better decisions for yourself and others, thereby getting better results in your endeavors. This is because you understand how things work. Let's go through some basic concepts that many people get wrong these days. The first is the misconception that majority rules. This is the idea that if most people believe something, then it must be true. Or even, then it must most likely be true. For example, if most people believe exercise is good for you, then the fact that most people believe it supposedly proves that it's true. Now, I believe that exercise is indeed good for you, and I'm sure most of you do too. But, I do not believe it because most people believe it. I believe it because it makes sense from my direct experience with it, and from how it's been shown that it improves biological markers like oxygenation and detoxification. However, most people believing that exercise is good for you is a separate matter. That is just the state of the general population's mind and chosen beliefs. This state can be arrived at in multiple ways other than logical sense-making, such as peer pressure, indoctrination, and fear and reward tactics by people in power, to name a few. Here's the thing, a whole big group of people can easily be made to believe the wrong thing. For example, people used to believe that burning women they decided were evil witches on stakes was completely fine and justified. Yeah, even the majority in Germany during World War II used to believe it was okay to blame the Jews for all their own suffering and ship them off to concentration camps. Man, were they wrong. Why exactly they believed such things is not the point of this video, but to show that just because the majority believes something, does not make it true, and oftentimes, not even more likely so. In fact, in a lot of cases today, you will find that when the majority believes something, it is more likely to be false. Another concept it is important to understand to embody a logical mind you can use to reliably find truth over and over, is the concept that something is not necessarily or even more likely true, just because an authority figure or a person in power says it. This one should be more obvious than it is to a lot of people because there are so many examples of it in history. One must understand that authorities are just human beings too. They are just other people. Perhaps some are half aliens, but the following still holds. Anybody can say something true, and anybody can say something untrue. Whether it is the most vetted, experienced academic on the planet, or a completely random stranger in the corners of the internet. People could have received and been convinced of the wrong information, they could have been bribed, they could have been extorted, they could have been threatened, they could have been in social groups that rubbed off on them, they could have decided to lie for whatever reason, maybe it turns them on or something, I don't know, people have their issues. There could be a number of reasons why anybody chooses to believe something, and say something, and the two don't always match. Therefore, it is evident that a proper process of source critique when researching something, must accept that any source could, potentially be a good one. Because it is possible that it is speaking the truth. This should get you of the mindset of, oh, that's just a random video online, so it is not a good source. If you apply logic, you see that that is not necessarily so. If the random online video is unreliable, it is not because it is a random video online, it is because its information does not add up, and you would have to use other methods of inquiry to figure out if that is the case. The same goes for an authority figure like a politician. They are not necessarily reliable just because they assumedly went through a vetted process that would filter out the bad guys to get to that position of power. It could be they are in that position because they went through a vetted process that filtered out the good guys. And they may be under a ton of different pressures, like conflicting interests, misinformed data, bribes, and extortion to make them believe and say the wrong thing, or personal greed. And of course, this goes the other way too. A random source online could be false, and a politician could be correct. Again, you have to defer to other methods of reasoning to figure out whether they are a good source. In summary of this point, there could be any number of reasons why somebody chooses to say something, and therefore you should not trust, or distrust, the information just based on who they are. Another massive pitfall plenty people fall in today is believing they know something with certainty before they actually research it thoroughly. You can start seeing where this goes. In the old trivium quadrivium teachings from ancient Greece to the Middle Ages, they would teach students to gather as much information as possible before making up their minds on what to believe about it. So, if you for instance wanted to know whether the ether was real, it is a good idea to go to a university to learn about physics and talk to multiple professors and so forth. By the way, the ether is a field of consciousness from which everything in existence springs and is bound together by But even if you talk to multiple professors at your university, and went to multiple different classes in this university, you are still limiting yourself to a very narrow range of sources. It is possible the university sources are a product of their time and culture, tainted by their peers' expectations of what to believe. Maybe not, but since it's possible, the logical seeker of truth will look to all sorts of other sources as well. He will read books from ancient Greece, documents from famous alchemists like Nicholas Flamel. He will dig into spiritual texts from the East, understand thoroughly scalar wave technology as it for example pertains to bodily healing, read about extraterrestrial encounters on the internet, and engage in diligent meditation practices daily. Only then can he claim to start knowing whether the ether exists because he has gathered enough data. Without enough data to draw from, there are too many blind spots in order to confidently decide on what to believe. It is like wondering if you should change lanes on the highway, but your windows and mirrors are all muddled up. Not a good idea. This video is by no means a comprehensive guide to how to think, but it covers some important aspects of it. It would be so cool to see more people apply these learnings when faced with any kind of subject or new information about different matters. You can use these principles of good logic to find the truth. I encourage you especially to notice within your own mind, when you go against these principles, for most people do that a lot without awareness. You might be faced with topics like taxation or medical procedures when you find yourself jumping to conclusions without thoroughly applying logic as described in this video. Even if theoretically, these principles make sense to you, applying them in practice takes practice. Give it a try. And have fun.